Most people can do extraordinary things if they have the confidence or take the risks, yet most people don't. They sit in front of the telly and treat life as if it goes on forever. A man called Philip Adams said that. And whatever you do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius and power and magic in it. That's a man called Van Goethe. And in Joel, in the Bible, it says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old will dream dreams. Your young will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. I will show wonders in the heaven and on the earth. Okay, apologies for my dreadful singing. But today I'm going to talk to you about three things really. Dreams, as you probably worked out already. Trusting God's guiding for us, for our futures, and how important we and our lives are. And I thought, such a beautiful day, we'll go on a journey, starting here at St Anne's Church. And here is my wonderful dad, been dead 27 years, but still my hero. He was a dreamer, but he, together with my mum, turned his dreams into reality, to the benefit of many, and to the glory of God. Okay, my dad also loved jokes. So since we're talking about dreams, my friend keeps on having disturbed dreams, shouting things like Hobbit, Mordor and Gandalf, always Tolkien in their sleep. And this guy goes to his psychiatrist and says, Doctor, you've got to help me. I keep having these dreams. One night I'm a marquee. The next night I'm a wigwam. Marquee, wigwam. Marquee, wigwam. I'm going out of my mind, doctor. And the doctor says, I know what your problem is. What? You're too tense. Welcome to Tumbledown Farm. Tell you more about this place a bit later on. You can see Radipole School over there and St Anne's. And looking out across Radipole, as we move to the corner, you see out to the bay, see the big liners, this beautiful view in this beautiful place. We're going to be talking today, as I said earlier, about dreams, about trusting God with our futures to guide us, and about how important we are. Okay, lots of fun and games here with the wind and up on the top. As I say, we're talking about dreams, trusting God's guidance for the future, and how important we are. And I got some great quotes on these. A man called James Dean said, "Dream as though you'll live forever, and live as though you'll die today." A great hero of mine, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." Mae Jennison said, "Never limit yourself because of others' limited imagination. Never limit yourself because of your own limited imagination." Samuel Beckett, on the same sort of score, said, "Ever tried? Ever failed? No matter. Try again. Fail again. Fail better." And then Albert Ellis. "The best years of your life are the ones in which you decide that your problems are your own. You do not blame them on your mother, the ecology, or the government. You realise that you can control your own destiny." Not completely sure about that without including God, but there we go. Harriet Tubman. "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. And a great man, Ralph Waldo Emerson: do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Mark Twain: 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbour, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. And finally, from a man called Tom Preston Werner: when I'm old and dying, I plan to look back on my life and say, wow, that was an adventure. Not, wow, I sure felt safe. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had a dream. He was standing by the Nile River. 7 cows came up out of the Nile, all shimmering with health, and grazed on the marsh grass. Then 7 other cows, all skin and bones, came up out of the river after them and stood by them on the bank of the Nile. The skinny cows ate the 7 healthy cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. Well, what you've just seen in the last part of that reading was from the view looking up to Tumbledown Farm from alongside the River Way, down just below St Anne's Church. Now we're up on the farm itself, forgive the artistic licence. But Pharaoh went back to sleep and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain, full-bodied and lush, grew out of a single stalk. Then 7 more ears grew up, but these were thin and dried out by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the full, healthy ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. Another dream. Right, we're now in the woods, one of the many little woodlands here, in these beautiful ash trees and a fire circle. Let me just quickly see if I can reverse that for you. Doesn't seem to be wanting to do it for me. Never mind. Right, so when morning came, Pharaoh was upset. He sent for all the magicians and sages of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but they couldn't interpret them to him. His head cupbearer then spoke up and said to Pharaoh, I just now remember something. A few years ago I was in prison with a young Hebrew slave. We told him our dreams and he interpreted them for us. Things turned out just as he interpreted. Pharaoh at once sent for Joseph. They brought him on the run from the jail cell. I dreamed a dream, Pharaoh told Joseph. Nobody can interpret it, but I've heard that just by hearing a dream, you can interpret it. Joseph answered, not I, but God. God will set Pharaoh's mind at ease. So Pharaoh told his dreams to Joseph and said, I've told all this to the magicians, but they can't figure it out. Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's 2 dreams both mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh what he is going to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears of grain are 7 years. They're the same dream. The 7 sick and ugly cows that followed them up are 7 years, and the 7 scrawny ears of grain dried out by the east wind are the same. 7 years of famine. The meaning is what I said earlier. God is letting Pharaoh in on what he's going to do. 7 years of plenty are on their way throughout Egypt, but on their heels will come 7 years of famine, leaving no trace of the Egyptian plenty. As the country emptied by famine, there won't even be a scrap left of the previous plenty. The famine will be total. The fact that Pharaoh dreamed the same dream twice emphasises God's determination to do this and do it soon. So, Pharaoh needs to look for a wise and experienced man and put him in charge of the country. Then Pharaoh needs to appoint managers throughout the country of Egypt to organise it during the years of plenty. Their job will be to collect all the food produced in the good years ahead and stockpile the grain under Pharaoh's authority, storing it in the towns for food. This grain will be held back to be used later during the 7 years of famine that are coming on Egypt. This way, the country won't be devastated by the famine. This seemed like a good idea to Pharaoh and his officials. Then Pharaoh said to his officials, "Isn't this the man we need? Are we going to find anyone else who has God's spirit in him like this?" So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "You're the man for us. God has given you the inside story. No one is as qualified as you in experience and wisdom. From now on, you're in charge of my affairs. All my people will report to you. Only as king will I be over you." So Pharaoh commissioned Joseph. "I'm putting you in charge of the entire country of Egypt." Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his finger and slipped it on Joseph's hand. He outfitted him in the robes of the best linen and put a gold chain round his neck. He put the second in command's chariot at his disposal, and as he rode, people shouted, "Bravo!" Joseph was in charge of the entire country of Egypt. During the next 7 years of plenty, the land produced bumper crops. Joseph gathered up the food of the 7 good years in Egypt and stored the food in cities. In each city he stockpiled surplus from the surrounding fields. Joseph collected so much grain, it was like the sand of the ocean, that he finally quit keeping track. Then Egypt's 7 good years came to an end, and the 7 years of famine arrived, just as Joseph had said. All countries experienced famine. Egypt was the only country that had bread. When the famine spread throughout Egypt, the people called out in distress to Pharaoh, calling for bread. He told the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph, do what he tells you." As the famine got worse all over the country, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold emergency supplies to the Egyptians. The famine was very bad. Soon, the whole world was coming to buy supplies from Joseph. The famine was bad all over. Hello, right, back out of the woods, so to speak, back home. What you've just been listening to me reading there was the most of Genesis chapter 41. And what a remarkable guy Joseph was. There are many lessons here. Just run through a few things. Joseph had been patiently waiting in prison, as Andy Penny said last week, for years and years and years. He didn't say it like that, but he trusted in God and was prepared to wait and suffer until God moved. Joseph gives God the glory and the kudos for interpreting Pharaoh's dream. He doesn't take it on himself. Joseph, however, does use what God has given him, the talent to interpret dreams, to good effect. He doesn't sit on his hands. Joseph is also brave in not just interpreting Pharaoh's dream, but in speaking up with his ideas on what should be done as a result. Again, he trusts God and steps out in faith. Pharaoh is so impressed with this brave and competent young man, filled with God's Spirit, that he gives him the role of Prime Minister. Joseph then takes on this awesome responsibility and does what he said needed doing. He didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk, and in doing so saved a lot of lives and the Egyptian economy. Interesting parallels to modern times. Highly regarded USA psychologist Greg Lavoie writes this: "Some years ago, a Johns Hopkins University study found that pregnant women who had an intuition about the sex of their baby were correct 70% of the time. But women who had a dream about the sex of their baby were correct 100% of the time. Powerful things, dreams. If I may, I want to tell you about a dream that I had. In fact, obviously we have dreams every night, but there's one dream that has made an enormous impact on my life. Going back a long time, 1985. It was a Wednesday night, remember distinctly. And in my dream I was in a coach. Believe it or not, I was a PE teacher then, back at what was then called Broadway School, what became Way Valley School. And I used to take football teams all over the place. And in this dream I was on a coach with a football team, but I was sat at the front and the driver was just slightly in front of me. But the driver was going ridiculously fast and I was terrified. We were going through narrow country lanes and he was taking these bends at top speed, was skidding all over the place, and I thought we were all going to die. And it got even worse because he came over the brow of a steep hill and then downhill, a steep, long downhill, and at the bottom of the hill was a river, a really big river, and the river was in full spate, going at terrific speed. In fact, it was so much, not just going so fast, but obviously well over its banks, that it had washed the bridge away. Now, I have a deep-seated fear of deep, fast-moving water, and to see this was horrendous. And the driver accelerated, and we were going faster and faster. We're just about to go into the river when he turned, smiled at me and said, "Trust me." And then we went into the water, and that was the end of the dream. Now, that Saturday, I used to play a lot of sport, and I was playing football that Saturday. I played quite a good standard of football. I played for Dorchester Town. I wasn't really quite good enough for them, but that Saturday I broke my leg, and I broke it very badly. The lower right leg was what's called a comminuted fracture, had 26 breaks in the two bones. That was the end of my footballing days. But it also brought a lot of other things down. I've been perhaps overactive, doing too many things, but I did feel very strongly aligned with my God. But following on from that, over a process of years, I did move further and further away from God. And in fact, it got to the point where I lived in Hastings, and for a long time there, things just weren't right. Really weren't right. And in particular, they weren't right in terms of my marriage. I'd been separated from my wife for such a long time, and it seemed impossible. I was baptised again when I was in Hastings, and that helped. And there were many other things, a wonderful church that I went to. Anyway, I'm close to shore now. This dream, I believe, is still active in me. There are still changes to come, but I'm close. There's more than dreams. We also have conscious dreams. Perhaps we could call them visions, like in the Joel reading earlier. I've had some in my life, and I've had one that was made for me. But there's only really one that's pertinent at the moment, and that's this place. Well, not this place, not my home, although that also was a vision. But where you've shown you earlier, Tumbledown Farm. John O'Rell has done wonderful work here, and it's owned by Weymouth Council, and John has set up all sorts of great things, and he's called it, or his dream for the place himself, is a place of healing. And that's how I feel as well. And all sorts of things have spurred me onto this, and I'm not alone. There are a number of people, good people, who really care about developing something in this wonderful natural environment to reach out to people in need. And that's people of all ages and all types. Okay, man goes to the doctor, and he says, "Oh, doctor, I'm in real pain. I've got pain all over my body." And the doctor says, "Well, give me an example." And he says, "Well," the doctor says, "Well, touch your forehead." And the bloke goes, "Oh," like this. Is "Ooh." And the doctor says, "Well, touch your chin." And he goes, "Ooh." And he says, "Well, touch your chest." So he goes, "Ah." And he goes down the body till finally he says, "Touch the knee." And he touches his knee. He goes, "Oh, no, that's agony." And the doctor says, "You silly man, you've dislocated your finger." Get it? I'm sorry. This man hurt all over, but he didn't really. Pharaoh's dream in the reading we had just now: don't let the bad in your life eat up the good. That's what happened in the dream, but Joseph made sure it didn't happen in reality. The same can happen in our lives, that the bad can eat up the good. I every day I listen to a man called J. John, who I met a long time ago, back in the early '80s, I'm afraid, when he was much younger. But he does a brilliant thing called Word for the Day, and today's word was the future. And he says this: let your hopes, not your hurts, dictate your future. Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. We don't know what the future holds, but we do know who holds the future. One of my favourite TV series is The Last Kingdom, about a Saxon king and a fictional character called Uhtred, who says, destiny is all. Well, maybe. But as J. John said this morning, there is no greater discovery than seeing God as the author of our destiny. Yeah, absolutely. You see, you matter, and your future matters. God and the Bible are really clear on this, over and over again. You and your lives, and mine as well, are every bit as important as anyone else. Absolutely. Luke 12 says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Easy for me, but not for you. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. And remember, God sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for us, for you and for me. He wouldn't have done that if he didn't think you were very, very important. So, don't let others put you or your ambitions down. Listen to what God is telling you. Reach out. Robert Browning wrote, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? So, to finish, as with Joseph, we should be patient and trust God. At the same time, if we have a dream or a vision, or if you feel God is telling you something, please can I offer you this advice? 1. Pray about it. 2. Speak to someone you trust, obviously preferably a Christian. 3. Be brave and don't let others or your own fear hold you back. 4. Make your lives extraordinary. 5. Reach out to others. 6. Do good. 7. Have lots of fun in your life. And those 6 and 7 will go together. If you do good, you will get good back and you'll have a lot of laughs. And number 8, make your life such that when you die and go to heaven, God and all his angels will be gagging to talk to you about all you have done. Can I finish with the quote that I used earlier, which I so love? When I'm old and dying, I plan to look back on my life and say, wow, that was an adventure. Not, wow, I sure felt safe. God bless you.